Dating in the 21st century is like walking through a field of landmines while you're drunk. One second, the sun is shining and the birds are singing. The next second, you've lost both your legs and are drowning in a sea of fiery napalm. Avoiding these toxic landmines can be a very tough challenge, especially when you're not sure what to look out for. So we're about to highlight the 5 bitter truths that you need to know to make sure you never get broken up with in cold blood ever again.
First, we changed the game with the chain-fed machine gun, as well as the Claymore landmine.
We'll be pointing out signs you can look out for to avoid the soul-crushing pain that is heartbreak. P.S. A lot of these signs may apply to men too, so we aren't just hating on girls here. Toxic people are toxic people. Also, these things are tricky, and you're going to have to take accountability for yourself before you start pointing fingers at others. With that being said though, here's our list. And be sure to stay tuned for our final tip. It's the absolute best way to spot a toxic person, and it never fails. Number 1. Background check her socials. First and foremost, what is the story that she's telling about herself? A social media page is essentially a personal brand. So what is her branding like? If her feed is 9 selfies in a row, for example, chances are she isn't a super deep person.
The draft at the mouth of that river may be too shallow.
Is she consistently advertising her body and being overly revealing? Maybe she's not the most loyal girl. Truth is, any girl can get attention for her body. So she either has nothing interesting to post or she's attention-seeking, which are both not very desirable qualities. Also, huge tip here, pay very close attention to her captions. You'd be very surprised just how much you can learn about someone's psychology from their captions. What's the tone of voice she's using? Are her captions lighthearted and intelligent quips, or are they narcissistic and judgmental? The more self-absorbed, the less a keeper she is.
I have a huge ego.
Anyone who takes themselves too seriously is no fun to be around. Any girl with too big of an ego is going to be a massive headache. Be sure to avoid these at all costs. Number 2, the vibes are important. Ask yourself, how is your chemistry? People often overlook this, but what percentage of the time are you truly enjoying each other's company? Are the vibes good? Do your personalities go well together, where you feel like best friends who have each other's backs? Or do you feel like you're constantly fighting and can barely make it through a conversation?
We really should stop this fighting, otherwise we'll miss the fireworks.
Do you really want a partner who you basically hate for 50% of the relationship? That's not a relationship, that's a transaction. A healthy relationship is 80% and up, and honestly, you should never settle for less. Honestly, a lot of people just aren't meant to be together, and that's okay. Just because you are both attracted to each other doesn't mean you're actually a good match. Is she excessively moody? Does she have a short temper? Does she pick unnecessary fights? Here's an excellent question to ask yourself. Is she adding peace or chaos to your life? Your girl should be a source of joy and peace. She should spiritually heal you and add balance to your life. If she's adding chaos or is excessively dramatic or high pressure, she's not good for you. Number 3, too many guy friends, overactive social life. If she has a childhood best friend who's also in a 7-year relationship, sure. But apart from that, guy friends are really just sources of attention for girls. When girls are with someone, they don't need guy friends. You as a man should be solving all of her needs on the love and attention front. If she insists, chances are she's keeping them around because she knows they want her and she likes that kind of attention, or she may actually be interested in some of them and keeping her options open.
I wouldn't say friends.
An overactive social life is another sign that she's keeping her options open. Once again, take this with a grain of salt. We all like to party here and there. But if she's going out 3 times a week and getting excessively drunk each time, she's honestly just fishing, especially if it's a girls' night and she's not asking you to join. Attractive girls get approached a minimum of 5 to 10 times every time they go out. And once again, if she was truly interested in you, she wouldn't need or even want to be in these environments. If she wanted you, she'd just want to be around you all the time. Number 4, the day-to-day matters most. Another massive factor, almost the most important point really, is communication. Any couple can be warm and peachy on date night. That's easy. But how's communication on an average day? Is she able to be clear with how she feels? Or does she instantly shut down and start dismissing you? Girls, especially the bad apples, tend to be very heavy manipulators. Personally speaking, this is an instant deal breaker.
That seems like a red flag to me.
Certain girls will manipulate and gaslight you even if you catch them red-handed. They'll double down and triple down relentlessly no matter what. They may exhibit a stunning lack of accountability and basically never apologize for anything. Sometimes they just don't know how to and are afraid, but other times they're doing it completely intentionally. That's when you know something is really toxic. Recognizing gaslighting is another important point here. Sometimes it can be direct, but other times it can be very subtle. Gaslighting comes in many forms, but a classic sign might be when a girl gives you a massive headache over an action of yours, conveniently forgetting that your action was just a reaction to what she did. For example, you might start yelling because you caught her lying to you, and she'll make a massive deal about the fact that you're yelling to shift the focus away from her lying. Now sure, maybe you shouldn't be yelling, but she definitely should never be lying, right? It's essentially her fighting for power and control over the relationship. Another classic example is if she's constantly playing the victim. These kind of girls will only add anxiety and stress to your life. It truly is never worth it. Focus on your career, King. Find better options. You are worth far more than settling for toxicity.
Get your shoes on. It's time to get rich.
Number 5, inability to compromise. Relationships are all about sharing degrees of compromise. None of us get what we want all the time. That's just not how it works. So if she seems like she's never willing to go the extra mile for you, or if she constantly puts her needs before yours, that's a pretty big red flag. You want a girl who's considerate and who's willing to compromise to make you happy, just like you should be willing to do too.
Compromise, reassurance. That's how the world works.
And if she can't do that, she's probably a bit too selfish for her own good. Being too selfish is a very common problem, actually. And it's the root of many common relationship problems like lying and even cheating. She lies to protect herself because she lacks the empathy to consider your emotions. This is what happens to guys who get led on. The girls don't have the honor, or sometimes even the ability, to be upfront and honest with how they feel. So they avoid the hard conversation until one day they flip a switch and you're left hanging out to dry. However, placing all the blame on them isn't a good strategy. Stay tuned until the end for a better one. Number 6, actions over words. This is it. This is the ultimate test. Girls almost never know exactly how they feel. And even if they do, one night could change everything. So you should never, ever trust what she says. Instead, trust what she does.
Actions speak louder than...
Actions speak louder than words. For example, if a girl is texting you all the time, but has an excuse every time you want to meet, guess what? She's just using you for attention. Or if you're in a relationship with a girl and she constantly makes the same mistake, yet always apologizes and tries to win you back, chances are it wasn't a mistake. A mistake repeated more than once is not a mistake, it's a decision. Trust me, she could play the innocent angel card every single time, but if she keeps taking your desires for granted, she's just playing you. It might be hard to cut things off with someone who appears genuine, but you have to realize that if her actions don't match her words, it's all just an act. Don't be fooled, and worse still, don't lie to yourself. Take her actions as gospel and act appropriately. Bonus, take personal accountability. Honestly, most toxic behavior is rooted in immaturity or a form of hurt people hurt people. As a rule, people don't want to intentionally hurt others. They're just dealing with so much pain themselves, or they're so emotionally underdeveloped that they just don't know any better. So in a way, if you've gotten hurt, forgive them, at least in your heart.
Don't judge them. Just forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Holding on to hate is a burden you don't want to carry. Also, you have to acknowledge if you did get played, it was probably your fault to some degree. Sure, they might be in the wrong, but you also allowed it to happen. People can only take advantage of you if you aren't on point. Maybe you saw the red flags and chose to ignore them, or you just weren't paying close enough attention. Maybe you lacked the self-respect to walk away despite repeated warnings. If you're really watching, you'll always be able to spot a fake. Like we said in the beginning though, these things are tricky, and you're going to have to really understand your own weaknesses before you play the blame game. Keep your eyes open, stay alert, and never get bitter. Best of luck.